What's up? I'm Jacob, and we're here with the tournament winning team from the Skydrop series this past weekend. Thanks so much to Gerd for throwing that tournament together, organizing everything. It ran super smoothly. We were able to get everything streamed on Twitch in Top Cut, and I just had a blast. Met a lot of really cool people. Got to hang out with Gigawatts94 again. Good friend. Got to battle them not only in Swiss but also in the finals. We split those. Giga took the Swiss set 2-1. I took finals 2-1. So everything kind of evens out in the end. But yeah, had a ton of fun. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the team, show it off on the channel as well. So starting with Palkia and Calyrex-Ice Rider, the restricteds. It's one of the archetypes that I think is really, really interesting. It's one of the ones that fascinates me the most because, I think that Palkia Calyrex requires so much creativity to play with, especially, with all of the Pokemon that you can see there. Outside of Palkia and Calyrex, you don't see too many damage-dealing moves. And so it requires a ton of patience as you play, again, a ton of creativity trying to, maneuver to different board states, and it really forces you to be on your toes and identify your win conditions as the game moves and as things change, whether you get, critical hits or misses or, any kind of RNG that happens, as well as, not expecting what your opponent does. So, I think it's very, very fun for me. Probably not as much fun for some of my opponents where, through 4 rounds of Swiss and then 2 matches in Top Cut, I had 3 games that ended at timer, with the timer hitting 0. Thankfully, I was able to win all 3 of them because, this team is just so bulky. But yeah, so it's, the exact same 6 Pokemon that Justin Burns used at the NAIC to reach top 4 there. And, I made a couple of changes. I, did a lot of just digging around as I was looking for a team for the tournament on VGC Pastes, which is a great resource. As well as just trying to come up, theory craft different matchups in my head, think about what people are going to bring. It's late in the season, it's just a local for fun, so I didn't want to bring, I thought about Gothitelle for a little bit, but I think trying to hit Blind Hypnosis and running Ally Switch in a friendly, I just didn't want to be that person. So I didn't run Gothitelle, and I really do like these 6. I love the way that they synergize with each other. You can kind of point out some obvious anti-synergies just right off the bat. The Tapu Fini and the Amoonguss, where Fini will set up the Misty Terrain, and Amoonguss can't put anything to sleep. Palkia as well, I want to talk about the moveset a little bit later, but the potential max lightnings that could also prevent the spores from going off. But that's, yeah, again, just part of keeping on your toes as the pilot of the team. And, I think there's a very clear difference between the matchups that you bring Tapu Fini to and the matchups that you bring Amoonguss to. So I never brought the 2 of them together, which is another big thing that you have to think about in Team Preview. But just going through some of the decisions I made, the Incineroar is pretty classic. It's a spread that I'm pretty comfortable with. I tweaked things to just be a little bit more physically defensive. With the Shuka Berry, I can survive a Groudon's Precipice Blades into another Precipice Blades with the Shuka if they are at minus, or if they're at neutral. If they're at -1, I can survive a Max Quake into another Precipice Blades after that, which is super nice. The Calyrex, the Babiri Berry came in huge, because as you can imagine, there are a ton of Zacians running around everywhere. So, being able to have that, safety, clicking a Trick Room against an opposing Zacian is super nice. The Porygon 2 against pretty classic. The Trace didn't come into play too much in the tournament. I had one set where I was able to trace a Prankster from an opposing Grimmsnarl, which Prankster recovers and your impulses are huge on Porygon 2. But other than that, I think it's a lot of fun, and P2 has a lot of cool abilities, Analytic and Download, but neither of them really matter too much. Analytic you can make a case for, but if the plan is to get Trick Room up and have P2 move first anyway, it doesn't provide any value. So I like the chance to trace a Prankster turn 1 in a game, as well as just learning what my opponent's abilities are. If I'm going up against a Thundurus and I trace Prankster or Defiant, then I have an immediate idea of what that Thundurus is going to do and can play accordingly around that. In the tournament, I ended up tracing Defiant from Thundurus, Intrepid Sword from Zacian more often than not, but, still just a good information gathering Pokemon. Amoonguss, again, It's the exact same Amoonguss spread and the exact same Amoonguss in-game that I used for my team for the Secaucus Regionals, although I did change Seed Bomb to Pollen Puff. Again, if I'm just operating under Trick Room more often, I can get the Pollen Puffs off to heal up the Calyrex, heal up the Palkia. Same idea with Heal Pulse on Tapu Fini. Again, pretty standard. I like the Citrus Berry on that Pokemon too, because with the Citrus Berry on Tapu Fini and the defensive investment that I put there, I can survive a Zacian's Behemoth Blade. I can survive 2 Behemoth Blades at -1. The first Behemoth Blade has about a 50% chance of activating the Citrus Berry, and if it activates, there's a 0% chance that the next one will KO, and if it doesn't activate, then it requires a max roll next turn on the Behemoth Blade to KO. So there's like I think a 4 to 6% chance that a Zacian's Behemoth Blade, if they're max attack adamant, will 2-hit KO a Tapu Fini, or this specific Tapu Fini. Fini, I also added Protect on pretty late. I originally had missed on that slot because, as ended up being the case in the tournament, and as I was going through practice, Incineroar was just a really big bother. You see that in one of the games that I played today too, but trying to limit the Intimidate spam, the Parting Shot spam into my team, I thought was going to be really valuable. With Fini, though, there just weren't that many free turns to click Mist, where it would really provide a lot of value. Almost always, if you aren't going to attack with Fini, almost always you'd rather be clicking either Heal Pulse to bring your Pokemon back up, even if they're not at half health yet, or you'd like to click Nature's Madness just to get some chip damage down on the opposing Pokemon. And so Protect there just gives a lot more value. There aren't a ton of Protects on the team, as you can tell. There are just 3 of them. So, another potential switch in, either stalling out opposing Tailwinds, or just repositioning within Trick Room, because again, that's so important with this team. And lastly, the Palkia. This is something that I picked up through VGC Pace, looking at a lot of, especially the regionals happening in like Eastern Asia. Big in Korea through all the Palkia Calyrex-Ice Rider teams, especially the ones that have Tapu Fini on them. You don't see a Palkia with a Dragon move. And at first, it seems kind of counterintuitive because Spatial Rend is the strongest move that Palkia can have that is pretty accurate. And Max Wormwood is so nice into, Groudon, Zacians, all the physical attackers that are running around in the format right now. As well as Thunder turning into Max Lightning, again posing that potential anti-synergy with Amoonguss. But as I was testing, I really enjoyed having that Max Lightning, as well as Thunders, because very often either I would set up the rain with Max Geyser, or if my opponent had Kyogre, Thunder's going to be my best damage into that. You don't see any other grass or electric type moves on the team, so it became really valuable into the Kyogre matchup. Because Palkia does such a great job at just sitting on Kyogre, but without Thunder, you're not dealing super effective damage, you're not dealing that much damage, especially if they have an Assault Vest or just are generally bulky, that it became very valuable there, into opposing Yveltals, that if I don't get Trick Room up can be a really troublesome, just snarling my Palkia, foul playing into Calyrex, all kinds of things, healing back up with Oblivion Wings too, can just be a nuisance, as was again shown in the tournament as Giga was running an Assault Vest Yveltal that just gave me fits, as well as the Bronzong on their team too. They just did a video with that team as well that I'll also link here. So you can see kind of how that matched up, and turned into it was a really good set. Unfortunately, we don't have the Twitch VODs that we can do a VOD review for. Would love to do the post commentary for that because they were great sets. The first game of that finals set went to timer, where all 3 of my Pokemon, I had Calyrex, Tapu Fini, and Incineroar all at red health. But because I had 3 Pokemon to their 2, I ended up coming away with the win there. And then I ended up winning Game 3 as well, through some pretty clutch survivals from Calyrex and Incineroar, and then being able to double up and knock out Giga's Venusaur as it was Dynamaxed. Just cleared the way for Palkia and allowed me to win that one as well. But yeah, the Palkia, the Thunder, I thought was really nice. The other big thing for Palkia not having a Dragon-type move is because we have Tapu Fini. Fini is going to be one of my best supportive answers into opposing Palkias, opposing Reshiram's, potentially Kyurems as well if they're trying to play Dragon moves, and Dialgas. So anytime that I would face down against a Palkia, Dialga, Reshiram, anything like that, I would make sure I had Feeny in the back as a potential switch-in, where I could feel pretty safe Dynamaxing my Palkia. We're very, very bulky on Palk. We can take a max Wormwind from pretty much anything in the format, especially if we have that Misty Terrain up, and then fire back with a max Quake to raise our special defense, fire back with a max Lightning, or something along those lines for just good neutral damage across the board. The Thunder also came up in play not just against Gigas Yveltal, but in a mirror match that I played at the Skydrop series, where my opponent had the exact same 6 Pokemon as me, except they traded out a Moongus for a Landorus, which didn't end up making too much of a difference, but turn 1, we both led Porygon to Palkia. I was able to feel pretty comfortable Dynamaxing my Palkia turn 1. I just max guarded as they switched out their Palkia to Tapu Fini. Then turn 2, the max Lightning for my Palk just crushed their Fini. Got the one-hit KO cleanly, and that put me in such a great spot, because both of the games in that set had to go to timer, because neither of us could really deal with the other one's Porygon 2. Just such a bulky Pokemon, and if it's just sitting on the field, then if they're sitting across from each other, it's tough to find the offensive pressure to deal with that. But yeah, again, the team is very, very fun. Forced me to be a lot more creative with my gameplay. I mentioned in a previous video that I really admire the players who play Calyrex-Ice Rider and Palkia at high levels, because I think it is just such an interesting archetype, and I do think that the creativity, the identifying the win conditions in the late game are some of the areas that I struggle with a lot as a player. So forced me to kind of learn those skills a little bit better, and I think I did pretty well, both at the tournament, being able to win that, and in the video that you're going to watch today. So a lot of fun, and before we get started, last thing is just to answer the question of the day, which is, as I was gushing about Calyrex-Ice Rider and Palkia, what are some of your favorite archetypes from Series 12, or what's your favorite archetype from Series 12 so far? This is really the first time I played with Calyrex. I started, picked up the team early last week, but, one of the ones I admired, anything with Palkia, big Palkia fan, but I do think, Lunala Groudon, and I had mentioned in the previous video, Dialga Kyogre, those very bulky offense pairings that don't include Zacian, I think those have a ton of untapped potential, and I do think we're going to see a lot of that in that, top cut, top 32, top 16 potentially in Worlds, and really shake things up. Because I think as the format has gone along, we are seeing more and more bulky Pokemon make a name for themselves. You saw the Slowbro rise up at NAIC. You see the Bronzong at Milwaukee on Jay Jung's team. So yeah, I think it's just trending that way. So I really like the bulk, but let me know what you think down in the comments below. Leave a subscription, leave a like on the video, helps out a ton. And we will, without further ado, and without any more of me rambling, get on into the video. Alright, first battle of the day, and it's Groudon Zacian with a Venusaur. Got the Incineroar, Regieleki, Whimsicott. Feels pretty standard for this composition, although, it's certainly not Rinia Sun, but a pretty standard Groudon Zacian core, regardless with the Venusaur. I think because of the Venu, Tapu Fini is very, very important here, but it doesn't offer me too much if they do go Aleki plus Venusaur. Works really well into that composition. I think Trick Room is going to be really important for me in this game, obviously. I would love to go Porygon 2, actually. If we go like Porygon 2 Palkia with Incin and Calyrex. I could also not lead Palkia. I could just go Porygon 2 Incin. I don't dislike that, but I would really... Let's leave Incin in the back. Be a good switch in to pretty much anything they have. Definitely bring both the restricteds here. And Amoonguss could be nice too, but it doesn't do much into a Venusaur. Could be safety goggles on the Incineroar as well. And then Regieleki could have Electric Terrain and not let me put anything to sleep. So we'll see. We'll see how this first game goes. Very interested to see what they lead, because I think that's going to tell us a lot about the game plan here, because I went very, very passive with the lead here, at least in game 1. So see how things shake out as they go with Whimsicott Alecki. Okay. So this could definitely have gone worse. I do go... I want Palkia over Incineroar. Yeah, no, never mind, that makes sense. For some reason I was thinking that I had Incineroar. But yeah, no, I think this is very, very fine for me. The only issue would be like a taunt Whimsicott, so they could potentially taunt my Porygon 2 and then click like Max Lightning into Palkia. Could be an issue. I still need... I think I still need to go for Trick Room with Porygon 2. They might not carry Taunt. With this lead, though, leading Whimsicott here does suggest Taunt to me. And then I would love just a Max Quake and eliminate the Alecki. Because an Alecki Max feels also very likely. Them trying to just get a ton of damage down on Palkia, but they don't Max. So now I'm worried it could be the Eerie Impulse variant of Regieleki. In which case this is an extremely short-sighted Max on turn 1, and could put me very behind in this game. But if we get Trick Room off, I think we're still in a pretty good spot. They switcheroo. It looks like that's going into the Porygon 2. So they are going to take away my Eviolite. And then the Electroweb. 5% chance that they could have missed that. So, I mean, not super risky, but definitely does keep Trick Room from going up this turn. So that was their anti-Trick Room turn 1. We'll just go out into... Let's go out into Incin first, I think. Actually, neither of their Pokemon put on too much offensive pressure. I think Calyrex here. And we'll see. I would also assume Sash Alecki in this spot too, because we didn't see... we know the Focus Sash is on Whimsicott, and we didn't see a Life Orb. So Focus Sash Alecki would make a lot of sense here. And if these two Pokemon do stay on the field for turn 2, as we do see the Focus Sash, I think that's a pretty free Trick Room. Neither of them put on too much offensive pressure on my Calyrex. And I do have the special defense boost anyway, just in case of the Alecki. So Trick Room should be pretty safe here. Again, they could have Taunt on Whimsicott. The Eviolite for them means nothing, so they could just take away an item. They could take away my Life Orb or Babiri Berry. Either one of those would actually be not great, but not much I can do to stop that. But if we do get Trick Room up this turn, I think we're in a fantastic spot. So we Trick Room, and I think we just Geyser into the Whims. Not worried about the Regieleki right now. It doesn't really threaten either of my Pokemon too much. They Helping Hand, so it could be like a Helping Hand Thunderbolt trying to do a ton of damage into Calyrex. Or it's Rising Voltage too, which actually is weaker than Thunderbolt if they don't have Electric Terrain up, and we take that so well with the special defense boost with the max HP. Geyser, depending on how much HP investment the Whimsicott has, is a roll to KO, but this is exactly the position I wanted to be in, because this allows us, we set up the rain, we get Trick Room up. What I'm going to do now, they have in the back, it could be just both Restricteds. I think it's either both Restricteds or it's Zacian Incin. And so, Palkia, if I click Glacial Lance this turn, is not going to get an attack off anyway. I think what I want to do is click Glacial Lance because it will KO both Pokemon on the field. Neither of them have priority unless, it's an extreme speed Regieleki. And in that case, I'm not too worried about it. We can just swap out to Incin. Forgo the last turn of Max because, again, we're not going to get any value out of it anyway. The worst thing that could happen is they do switcheroo, the Suicide Switcheroo Whimsicott, and just try to take away my Life Orb on Palkia, which would actually be very detrimental. So I want to make sure that we keep that item, because that's going to be our best late-game damage into Calyrex. They protect with Alecki, so that does suggest to me that they do have Incineroar in the back. They switcheroo into the Calyrex, taking away my Eviolite, or taking away my Babiri Berry, giving me Eviolite. So we are going to KO the Whims. Alecki sticks around for this turn, but it doesn't matter. We're, still have 3 more turns of Trick Room after this. And I do think we're in a pretty good spot. The question here is what they have in the back. the crit to do 10 HP to Whimsicott. The question is, of course, what they have in the back. I would assume Zacian and either Incineroar or Groudon. If it's Groudon, if they don't have Incin here, I think we are in a fantastic spot. Yes, we do lose the Babiri Berry, but it is Groudon. Perfect. So they set up the Sun. We're +1 with Calyrex. They set up the Sun for our Flare Blitz. We can just Glacial Lance and Flare Blitz into the Groudon. And I think even if they max, that should KO that combination. Because the Glacial Lance does a ton. Again, we're at +1, just want to confirm that. Their play could be, if they don't have Zacian in the back, which I think would be very interesting on their end, to say the least. They could switch in their Incineroar. So I could play this a little bit safer and click Parting Shot this turn over Flare Blitz. And I think I do want to do that, actually. Because after a Parting Shot, the Groudon shouldn't be able to KO our Calyrex. They don't switch. But we are going to just get the KO on Alecki this turn. We do get the Parting Shot off, which means that at the worst, if they crit Calyrex with a Max Quake, they could also have Max Flare, which I didn't think about. Yeah, I think Flare Blitz that turn into Groudon's just the better play. As Alecki tries to go for the double. Doesn't matter too much. We Glacial Lance, get that KO, and yeah, damage into Groudon. If they're buried on Groudon, Flare Blitz probably didn't get that KO anyway. They can't get their berry, though, because we have Calyrex. So yeah, I think Flare Blitz in that spot is probably the better play. It does look like they're very bulky Groudon, but we do at least get them to -1. We are in a position now where Palkia, we don't have much speed. We're 121. That's likely faster than a Groudon. So I do just want to go out into P2. If it's Zacian in the back, I mean, next turn I'm just going to switch back into Instant anyway. But we'll see how much damage they do. I would expect, yeah, Max Flare if they're going to max. Goes into Calyrex in the Sun. They are at -1, but we hang on. Oh, wow. Never mind. So the Parting Shot's the play there then. Parting Shot's absolutely the play if we hang on in the Sun from a Max Flare. That's insane. And it is Venusaur in the back. So there's no Zacian. That's food. That is Calyrex food right here. We have 2 turns of Trick Room left, so a Glacial Lance here is so free. And we'll just go back out to Instant. Yeah, I don't think there's any way that we lose this game now. I mean, their play would be to try to double protect with both. Unless they're Focus Sash on Venusaur and they could try to get a Sleep Powder off this turn. But even if they do that, then the Groudon goes down, yeah. So Groudon faints. And we know they're not Focus Sash Venusaur because the Regieleki had it. So they just let both go down, and, I mean, yeah, game 1, you just see the power of Calyrex-Ice Rider. It's just so strong if you're able to get it in. And, I think we did just find a really good spot there in the early game where we weren't under that much offensive pressure. The Babiri Berry being tricked away ended up not mattering at all, and we could just snowball the rest of the game with one of the strongest Pokemon in the format right now. So, great way to start the video, and we'll get on to second battle. Second battle of the day here, and a Necrozma Duskmane. I found in the last video, too. I guess they're just running all over. I'm still in Ultra Ball right now, as we work our way back into the new season. But Necrozma Duskmane, Calyrex Shadow Rider, and then just a bunch of support in Whimsicott, Regieleki, Insane, and Gastro. Definitely feels like weakness policy Necrozma with a Bulldoze Calyrex. This actually looks like a pretty tough matchup if we don't get Trick Room up. Porygon 2 could be nasty with some foul plays in the late game. So I do want to bring that in the back, I think. We don't have a Grass move on Amoonguss, which is a little bit of a bummer. We could go, Instant Palkia with P2 and Calyrex. I think feels pretty solid here. They don't have any Pokemon that would really punish me for an Intimidate right off the bat. Calyrex in the back, again, if we get Trick Room up, it's just so strong. The other the other Pokemon I'd be considering is Amoonguss, because maxing Regieleki in this game feels pretty unlikely for them. And Tapu Fini, we're not really worried about status conditions. I'm going to go Calyrex. It is just so strong. We do have the Babiri Berry too. So, we could live a Steel move, especially if we either avoid the weakness policy on the Necrozma, or we are able to nerf it down with some Intimidates. So we get started with the second game queue. This one definitely feels like, so they go Wims Incineroar. That's fine by me. Absolutely fine by me. Because, let's see. We do see our Intimidate go first. Our Incineroar just has 4 speed IVs, or 4 speed EVs, because that's all we need. So it's likely a speed tie with the Incineroars, as, Incin without any speed, it feels suboptimal, really. Could be, though, on a team that where, they have Tailwind and Trick Room. You might want your Incin to underspeed other Incineroars. It feels like this turn we're likely just going to trade Fake Outs. So, like, if I Fake Out their Whimsicott, this turn, I do want to Fake Out their Incin, I think. No, because they could be Taunt, they could be any number of things on Whims. So I'm going to Fake Out Whimsicott, and I do want to max Geyser the Incineroar. No, they could have Gastrodon on the back. I'm going to max Quake. I caught myself there. I would think Shuka Berry is pretty likely. I don't know if they would even bring Gastrodon into this matchup. Because they see the Amoonguss, they see, the Calyrex Shadow Rider, and with this lead, you would expect just both Restricteds in the back. But I really want to eliminate this Incineroar as fast as I can, and if they're not Shuka Berry, I think it's a roll to KO with a Max Quake. So we do get our Fake Out off first. They could just be Parting Shot too, as they eject button. Perfect, okay. See, that's what I was worried about, was another switcheroo Whimsicott that, it causes all kinds of issues. But they do bring Gastrodon, there we go. That's why we Max Quake. They do try to Fake Out our Palkia, fine by me, because we got our Quake off into the Incin. It is Shuka. But we see 3 of their Pokemon. Calyrex Shadow Rider, I guess, would be what's in the back for them. It could be Necrozma. They might not want to bring Calyrex Shadow Rider, especially if it's not Focus Sash, which, especially if you see the Eject Button Whimsicott, I would definitely think Sash. But we pop the Shuka on Incin. They don't have any other... They don't have any ground resist. So another Max Quake into that slot is pretty free. The issue is they could just start putting things to sleep. So what, the other tech on this team that I didn't get to show off in game 1 is we go now into, let's Parting Shot actually. Just be on the safe side. Parting Shot, and we will max Lightning into the Incineroar because their only ground type is on the field right now. It's a very free Lightning, and we do block any potential Yawns. The Lightning, cool, okay. I thought it was going to pick up the KO, and that is really nice because that frees up our Calyrex big time in the late game. So that's nice, we do pick up that KO. We block a Yawn that feels pretty likely this turn from the Gastrodon. And we Parting Shot out into... I think we just go Porygon 2 this turn. Because if they go... I want to see what's in the back for them. Because if we bring out Calyrex, they likely just go into whatever restricted they did bring, which, again, they only brought one of them. Second game in a row where our opponent only brings one restricted. So yeah, I don't want to invite in a Calyrex Shadow Rider potentially outside of Trick Room, because that could be pretty bad. We should survive one Astro Barrage if they're not, like, Max Quake, or Max Special Attack. Oh! They try to Scald in the Incin, and we get that redirection of the Porygon 2. It really doesn't matter. I'm assuming Scald into the Incin. It could have been targeting our Palkia, but that would do no damage. And it's not like we have any special attacking moves on Porygon 2 anyway. So it doesn't matter too much, but still just nice to see. The Storm Drain P2, it does mean I have to be a little bit careful with it. So we are going to... What do we want to do with P2 this turn? Trick Room this turn. just makes the Gastrodon faster, and I don't think I like that. So I'm just going to double into that slot with a Quake and a Foul Play. Just trying to get some damage down. They switcheroo, yeah. So again, we see the Whims trying to switcheroo my Eviolite away. Makes sense, definitely, as they, have the eject button used up turn 1, so doesn't really matter. But Quake, yep, is going to be a 2-hit KO. And Foul Play is just going to be a little bit extra chip. We don't have much better to do with Porygon 2 this turn, but we definitely don't want to, take free damage if they try to Earth Power into that slot, as it looks like our P2's faster than the Gastrodon too, which could be nice. So they recover. Yeah, I mean, this Gastro is just going to be a little bit annoying, I think, trying to stall out the electric terrain, and we do see the leftovers as well. So what we do here, since neither of their Pokemon, again, neither of them put on any offensive pressure, and the Porygon 2 is going to be really, really nice in the back with Foul Play into either Necrozma or Calyrex. I'm just going to hard swap into my own Calyrex. I don't think they can do any damage to that slot, and we do still have 3 more turns of electric terrain. Palkia, the 2 special defense boosts are really, really nice, so let's just Earth Power again into Gastrodon. The Whimsicott could be an issue with Moonblast if they go for that this turn into Palkia. But, I want to make them show me that move, and we shouldn't faint to 1 Moonblast. They're just going to switcheroo, again, likely into the Palkia. And this is, if anything, it allows our Palkia to stick around a little bit longer, because we're not just taking that Life Orb chip. It does mean that our Earth Powers, that's still not bad damage. Our Earth Powers aren't doing too much into Gastrodon, as they Ice Beam into Calyrex. Cool. So that's a pretty free switch in for me, and now I threaten a ton of damage here with a Glacial Lance. Important too is that we already have the Pokemon advantage, and both of my support Pokemon in the back, the Instant and the Porygon 2, both have great matchups into whatever their last is. So I'm fine just clicking Glacial Lance this turn. The Calyrex, I do want to double check the speed. Again, I haven't played too much with this team. I know Gastrodon, if their min speed, can underspeed Calyrex. But that's fine. Even if Gastro is faster, I mean, their play, it's Charm Whimsicott, though. Okay. So that's a little bit of a bummer. So it is Charm. Of course, we do see the Earth Power go off first here from Palkia, and even Charmed, I would think, if they don't recover, that we would have been able to get that KO. But they really aren't doing anything right now. Glacial Lance is still going to do pretty good damage into the Whimsicott. And the Gastro, yeah, we do great damage into Whims there. Gastro, I am not really that worried about. Yeah, I mean, their play this turn, I guess, would be, Charm Calyrex again. But the thing is, if you keep doing that and you're not recovering on Gastrodon, then I'm eventually just going to KO both of these. If Gastrodon doesn't, they Tailwind here, so I would think probably Necrozma in the back. But even under Tailwind, the Gastrodon doesn't outspeed Palkia. We do get the special defense drop, so that's very, very nice. They Scald, fishing for a Scald Burn into Calyrex. That would stink, I'll be honest, but we do dodge the Scald Burn. We get our Glacial Lance off, and that's bye-bye Whimsicott, and just barely hanging on this Gastrodon. That would have been really nice to pick up the double KO that turn. But that's fine. We're now at -1 with Calyrex. We do still have the Babiri Berry. They have... what's it called? They, Tailwind up. The electric terrain disappears now, too, so Gastrodon did successfully stall that out. But what we can do here, as they do have Necrozma in the back, so what we can do here is just lower their attack, play around a potential weakness policy. If I lower their attack, they shouldn't be able to KO Palkia in one hit, so we can just Earth Power into Gastro, turn this into a 4v1 or 3v1, depending on if they do pick up a KO this turn. But Incin is really, really valuable into this Necrozma, since, unlike Solgaleo, the Intimidates do work against it. So they, Dynamax this turn. I think they, they had to Dynamax this turn. But I think we're in a really good spot. It just shows between the first battle and this one, two very different ways you can play with the team. Game 1, I was very aggressive, found a very early opening for the Calyrex-Ice Rider, came right into the field of play, and was able to put on a ton of offensive pressure. Whereas this game, we ended up just playing a lot more slowly, just whittling them down, and you see how little damage that Max Quake does. And that special defense boost is not going to save the Gastrodon here. Yes, it does give them an option to, live in Earth Power, but I'm just not going to give them their weakness policy. And we do still have the Shuka Berry on Incineroar, so, there's nothing that Necrozma can really do to Incin. They've got, the set is likely, Psychic move, so probably Photon Geyser, Sunsteel Strike as a Steel type move, and Max Quake would be from Earthquake. I'm just going to Parting Shot here. And Hydro Pump for good neutral damage. It's only 80% accurate, but we don't have any reason to not click that move right now. Could have also Trick Roomed. I may win a Trick Room next turn, but the Max Quake, yeah, -1, we have the Shuka. And after we get a Parting Shot, we get to cycle Incineroar back in. I'm not worried about the damage output of this Necrozma at all. So we do hit the Hydro. You see there it does nothing after +2 special defense boosts. But a good Parting Shot, back out the Incin. There's a chance it could be one of the special Necrozma sets that runs, still Photon Geyser, but runs Flash Cannon or Steel Beam. As Prism Armor, could come into play if they have Fighting type coverage. But you would think that the last move on Necrozma would be either Trick Room or potentially Swords Dance or Protect. On a team that does have Tailwind and the fast option with Calyrex Shadow Rider, Protect feels like it could be pretty likely, pretty viable. This turn, actually, I am going to... Yeah, this turn, actually, I am going to activate the weakness policy on purpose. So you saw I clicked the Earth Power into Necrozma, because I know they're still faster for this turn. And I'm going to move after them with Palkia's Earth Power. That does so little. That does nothing, but we do activate the weakness policy. Brings it back up to neutral, which just means that our foul play next turn with Porygon 2 is going to do a lot more damage. And it means that since the Dynamax ends this turn, we're going to be able to do a lot with the Palkia's Earth Powers. We don't have to worry about them missing either, which is nice. But they should be either back up to neutral. They do have, plus a bunch of defenses, but not super worried about that. We saw how little their max moves did into Incineroar and into Porygon 2, even without Eviolite on Porygon 2, is the important part. But the foul play, that's solid damage. Necrozma, there was a set running around that had Swords Dance and Morning Sun. They do have Swords Dance. Okay. So that just means that foul play is going to KO next turn. Unless they get, a triple Protect. So, yeah, again, in a pretty good position, and, that's what this team's all about, is, board positioning, finding your openings to bring in your restricted Pokemon, do big damage, and especially in the end game, you have to recognize the win condition. Keeping Porygon 2 and Incineroar in the back was really, really important for us. I do want to see the full... Yeah, so it is exactly Photon Geyser, Sunsteel Strike, Earthquake, Swords Dance. We saw all those moves except for the Psychic move, Sash Calyrex, that they didn't bring into this match. I think it definitely could have done a ton with the way that they played it, too. Journeying Tailwind, just max HP, max special defense on Whimsicott 2. Very disruptive set. The Alecki, just meant to deal damage. Classic Incin with Shuka, and the Leftovers Gastro, which I was a little bit surprised that they did have Scald. Which, looking back on it, having Scald on that moveset, and after we did see the Ice Beam, I could make the inference that they weren't carrying Yawn, which was the case. But, especially on Leftovers Gastros, you usually see Earth Power, Ice Beam, Protect, and Yawn the most common moves, and with it still being leftovers, Yawn over Recover I think is still a pretty viable option. I think Recover on lefties, Gastro, doesn't make a ton of sense, just because you're still getting that consistent recovery, and Protect is a little bit more consistent as far as stalling out opposing Dynamaxes and things like that. Because Gastro, as great as it is at checking Kyogre, see, the defenses really are a little bit lacking, and yeah, I mean, you saw why we did so much damage with just a simple Earth Power, is because they had no special defense investment. So, some ways that you can chip away at support Pokemon and make them a little bit more manageable. But we will get on to the third battle of the day. Last battle of the day, and it's a pretty offensive team. Looks very similar to the team that I faced a couple times. It was from Ro at the Skydrop series, both in Swiss, where he beat me 2-1, and then in the top 4 match where I beat him 2-1. But it was a similar Calyrex-Ice Rider composition. I think it was exactly the same 4 Pokemon, except Ro had a Mamoswine over the Rillaboom, or Mamoswine over the Gastrodon, which was pretty cool. And Mamoswine oblivious, doesn't worry about the Incineroar's Intimidates. That was could be pretty nice. But into this matchup, I led a lot the Porygon 2 and the Palkia, as Ro went with the Thundurus and Zacian. I think P2 Palkia with Incin and Calyrex is probably the best move, because Porygon 2, unless they double into it, they have no way to KO. They have no way to KO P2 turn 1. Incin in the back, again, just has such a favorable matchup into the Calyrex and the Zacian. But again, this is going to be a game where I do have to get up Trick Room, I think. At least in the late game. Early game, if they do lead the Incineroar, they could deny Trick Room at least for 1 turn, but that would allow us to get the KO on Incin, which is always the goal. Is not got the Incineroar early, so that we can set up with Calyrex and win the late game. But it's just Cali Incin. So Calyrex Incineroar. Both of these I would like to get out of here as soon as possible to set up my own Calyrex in the back. We will see what Porygon 2 traces. It really doesn't matter what we trace in this spot, but Intimidate is a little bit more useful since Incineroar can potentially do some damage. So how do I want to play this turn 1? We've got Incin and Calyrex in the back. Definitely don't want to just bring in Calyrex. A Fake Out plus an Astro Barrage feels likely. What is it? An Imprison Calyrex could also be in play here. So I want to do is actually just double into Calyrex turn 1. They do have Thundurus as their 1 ground immunity, but I don't think, if they didn't lead it, I don't think they would bring it to this game. And if we're able to just KO Calyrex, because they do switch out Calyrex into Gastrodon. That's what we saw happen last game too, as they just try to protect the Incineroar. And that is a pretty solid answer into my Trick Room, because if I would have just clicked Trick Room with Porygon 2 and Max Geyser with Palkia, then they've got a pretty solid game set up, because both of their Pokemon are slower than my Maxed Mon. But another turn 1 Dynamax for Palkia. They don't Fake Out with Incineroar, so that would lead me to believe it is going to be a Parting Shot, which I don't love. Don't love the Parting Shot that is likely coming Palkia's way. But pretty glad that I didn't. Oh, it's just Taunt. That's fine. Okay, yeah. Taunt is good. Because that means that we do get the Foul Play off into the Gastrodon, even after leftover recovery now, puts it in range of another Max Quake, which would be very, very nice if we can deal with the Gastrodon here. But again, they do leave 1 restricted behind. Or no, because they led the Calyrex. So it's probably Zacian is the last. Which, fine by me, again. With Porygon 2, the only thing we can do is click Foul Play. So I think I will just go into Incin. It gives us Fake Out Pressure next turn. And we are just going to Max Quake again into the Gastrodon. Gastro protecting, just trying to stall out my Dynamax, feels pretty likely, as we don't see either of them switch. So we do get Incin out. We are going to get the second Intimidate down on their Incineroar, which, again, doesn't mean too much in the grand scheme of things. As Gastro does protect Parting Shot, you know, makes a ton of sense for them here. But another special defense boost for Palkia is very nice. And one thing that I, had to become really comfortable with as I was playing through the tournament this past weekend was, just taking drops on my restricteds. With all the Incineroars running around and me not having White Herb on Calyrex, and with all the Incineroars who just Parting Shot my Palkia, it affects a bunch of calcs, but at the same time, because we can get the special defense boost on Palkia, because we do have the Trick Room on our side, we have plenty of Pokemon that can switch into, all kinds of different attacks as they just go Zacian here. We have the ability, we have the technology to deal with these attack and special attack drops. Now, the obvious play is just Fake Out and Quake Gastrodon again. I think their Zacian has to protect this turn, because if I Fake Out and Quake into that slot, that is just game over for Zacian. We do know all 4 of their Pokemon now. Again, I do want to get Trick Room up. Porygon 2 is going to be my best way to do that, I think. Fake Out, and because they protect with Gastro, it's very free. They could swap out into Incineroar if they have the Shuka Berry. But, if I can just KO Gastro here, I don't have to worry about Yawn Pressure. We do get the Fake Out. They don't protect with Zacian. It was likely, I think, I guess that play makes sense to not protect with Zacian if you're clicking Yawn with Gastrodon, as they survive. Really? After just -1 special attack, they survive that. That's gotta be a super low roll. And they do Yawn into my Palkia. Oh, man. So that's not great. That's what we call bad. I can't let Palkia go to sleep here. Incineroar should live a Sacred Sword from Zacian, because we're at full health. So you could just Throat Chop into the Gastrodon for that KO. Because I think they read into the switch out this turn. So a Sacred Sword onto Incineroar feels really likely. They could also just protect with Gastro. So I'm going to Parting Shot the Zacian and go into Porygon 2. I think Gastro protecting makes a ton of sense here because, my play pretty obviously would be switch out to P2 and try to KO, just Throat Chop into the Gastro. As they withdraw Gastrodon into Incineroar, also makes sense, because it gives them Fake Out and Taunt Pressure next turn. But we are going to at least get the Zacian down a little bit. So they Behemoth Blade. Probably into the Palkia slot, reading the switch out. Yeah. So it's going to do a little bit. It's going to do a lot. It's going to do more damage than I would like. But we do get the -1. And we can now go back out to Palkia. Yeah, we've taken a little bit of damage on Palk, but Palkia is calced to live a Play Rough at -1. And with them not clicking Play Rough that turn, I think it's... I wouldn't say it's likely that they don't have Play Rough, but I would think it's definitely on the table. And if they do have it, number 1, they have to hit it. Number 2, they actually have to go for it. So I would love to click Trick Room this turn and go out into my own Incineroar. I think it's very likely that I think it's very likely that their Incineroar taunts into the Porygon 2 slot, and if they have Play Rough on their Zacian, they would click that into Palkia. But yeah, not getting that KO on the Gastrodon really makes this a lot tougher to play through the end game. But I think we do. They do play rough, they do go into Palkia, and we do live. There it is. That's super, super defensive. They do taunt into our Incineroar, so no parting shots for us. But we are able to get the Trick Room up. We can now fake out their Incin. We can now fake out their Incin and Earth Power. Yeah. I think that's probably the play. Because if Palkia goes down here, then I just get the free switch in to my Calyrex, which would be very, very nice. So let's Earth Power the Zacian. I don't think that would KO outright, but again, if Palkia goes down, then we just get Calyrex in for free, and that puts us in a great spot. So fake out the Incin so they can't Parting Shot, they can't Throat Chop or Darkest Lariat, whatever their non-fire move is, into Palk, and they are going to protect with Zacian. So that makes a ton of sense. I didn't think I was in a position where I had to read into the Protect, because if I can get Calyrex in, I'm in a great spot. So their play this turn would be what? Probably would be potentially switch Zacian out. I think I am going to get a little bit aggressive. I'm going to Earth Power into the Zacian again, expecting Palkia to faint here to the Incineroar. And I would love, because my Incin's taunted, so I can't do anything. I can't Parting Shot. I want to get Porygon 2 back in so that I can get a quick... I want to get Porygon 2 in so that I can get a quick recover. Because I don't think they would think to double taunt that slot. Another Intimidate would have been really nice if we were able to trace that, but as we all know, it's super important to get those attack boosts on your Porygon 2. So they bring in the lowest health Gastrodon you've ever seen and just Parting Shot. So denying me a free switch in, as they Parting Shot, likely going... I don't know who you would bring into this spot. Probably Zacian, so they can just protect again. But that's fine, because I can KO the Gastrodon and get a recover, and either, depending on who they fake out or who they target into with Incineroar, either get recover up with Porygon 2 or break the Incineroar's potential Shuka Berry, which would be nice for a late game high horsepower from Calyrex, although Calyrex doesn't care about berries, as we know. Let's see who they bring in here. It is going to be Incin. Makes sense. So they bring in Incin. 2 turns up to Trick Room, I think. Yeah. 2 turns left to Trick Room. So we're just going to Earth Power into Incin and recover. As Incin fakes out, they don't protect. So they fake out Palkia. We live with 3 HP. And Zacian likely targets into the Porygon 2. We're not going to feint to a... we're not going to feint to a Sacred Sword. So that's nice. At least we do have that. But it does just waste one more turn of Trick Room, which is definitely not ideal. On the plus side, though, we do just Earth Power into Zacian this turn. Because again, Palkia, I think, just goes down to Incineroar. But actually, yeah, I'm going to Earth Power into Incin, and I'm going to recover again with Porygon 2. Because next turn, as they don't protect again with Zacian, probably just going for the KO on Palkia. So they Flare Blitz into Palk. I mean, it's going to pick up the KO. It's only at 3 HP left, but... feels like a little bit of overkill unless they just don't have a Dark-type move. So again, a Sacred Sword again. We do live that. Barely. As now we can go out into our own Incineroar. The trouble here is that now we're low enough, after those 2 Sacred Swords, we're low enough that the Incin can pick us off with a Flare Blitz. So, because the play would be Fake Out Zacian. If we had a little bit more HP, it would be Fake Out Zacian and Trick Room. But a Flare Blitz will be able to pick up the KO on Porygon 2 this turn. They could also just taunt. So I'm going to Fake Out Incin and try to get Trick Room up. You know, it might have also been better to just go ahead and Calyrex that turn, protect Cali, try to get Trick Room up. As they Sacred Sword into P2. That's fair. So now we don't have our... The downside here is that we don't have our Fake Out turn. So yeah, so what I was thinking is, if I go out into Calyrex that last turn, then I'm able to protect Cali, let Porygon 2 go down, and then I have Calyrex next to Incineroar with the Fake Out turn. So this turn I do have Babiri, but if they double into Calyrex, then you know there's nothing I can do about that. That will pick up the KO. Actually might not. I think this is really risky. But it also requires them to actually double into Calyrex. The thing is, the Babiri Berry with Zacian at neutral, as they, again, okay, perfect. They Sacred Sword into Incineroar. They could just taunt, though, into Calyrex, which I didn't think about. That is good damage. As, yeah, taunt. So that's going to ruin the strategy. Yeah, the taunt Incineroar, I just don't have a way to play around at this point in the game. Which is really unfortunate, I'll say. So let's just Throat Chop the Incin, and we have to click Glacial Lance this turn, because it will pick up the KO on Zacian at least. Again, Calyrex won't faint to a double up. So that's our one, saving grace this turn, is that because Zacian's at neutral, Incin's at -1, you're at least going to get to see the bulk on Calyrex. But yeah, I think there are definitely ways I could play this game better, as that just looks like max attack Zacian. We get a Throat Chop off into their Incin. As they Flare Blitz. Doesn't really matter which slot that goes into. It goes into our Incin. As they, we're probably just expecting to get the KO. Yeah, probably just expecting to get the KO with Behemoth Blade. But the, super bulky Behemoth, or super bulky Babiri Berry, trying to say that 5 times fast, really comes in clutch. The other downside here is that they also haven't used their Dynamax, and so they've got their Calyrex in the back, that's going to be able to just clean up. So, yeah, it's the game. I do think if we bring in... Yeah. I mean, they're definitely... Early game, I think I could have held onto my Dynamax a little bit longer with Palkia. I don't think it was super necessary to, max turn 1, just try to get some damage off. The taunt on Incin made it a big priority, but I had to KO the Gastrodon before I could use a water move into their Incineroar, which made things a little bit tough. But that turn where I had the switch in next to P2 with Incin and Calyrex in the back, I do think if I bring in Calyrex that turn, I do think if I bring in Calyrex that turn, go protect Calyrex, just give up Porygon 2, and again requires them to target the P2, but I think splitting their damage or at least taunting makes a lot of sense. And my protect is just so obvious. But if I get into a position there in the end game where I have Incineroar next to Calyrex, I know I survive, even the double up, but I know I survive 1 Flare Blitz or 1 Behemoth Blade. Where, yeah, not quite max attack, but pretty close. This is the classic Zacian set, and it is Shuka. Yeah, the taunt's tough. And taunt, of course, would mean that they don't have a dark type move, because you can't really fit that on that set. But I like Do It. It's cool. Yeah, if you're running Assault Fest. But yeah, so if I get into a position where I have Calyrex, Ice Rider, next Incineroar, opposite their Incenization. I am in a much better spot there because I can just click Fake Out into the Incin, get a guaranteed Trick Room up because we don't feint to a Behemoth Blade. We don't even feint to a Behemoth Blade crit if they're at neutral through the Babiri Berry, so I think that's... If we could have gotten ourselves into that position, then we had a much better shot. The tricky part of that endgame, though, is that I would have to high horsepower the Incineroar and Flare Blissization, and so then it still becomes pretty tough. And it's definitely not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely gives us a better shot at that endgame. But can't win them all. But definitely got to see a lot of different ways you could play with the team, and let's just get to the rental code and wrap up the video. And there you see it again, the rental code for the Calyrex-Ice Rider and Palkia team that I used to win the Skydrop Series tournament this past weekend. Had a ton of fun with it, both at that tournament and playing the games here today. Again, thank you so much to Gerd for organizing that tournament. Had a blast. Again, met a lot of really cool people, and just cannot wait until Gen 9 comes out and we can really get back into it with locals. Because that's something that, having started playing early 2020, hardly haven't gotten to experience too much of. So really looking forward to that, and looking forward to hearing what you think about the team. Leave comments in the comment section below. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you like what we're doing here. It helps out a ton. And again, answer the question of the day. What are some of the restricted pairs that you really like? What's your favorite restricted pair? You can also let me know what restricted pairs you think are going to do well at the World Championships coming up next month. Would love to hear any of those thoughts. Again, Calyrex-Ice Rider Palkia, just so nice. The Dialga Kyogre featured on the channel as well. Just unkillable. That bulky offense, you really can't beat it. But yeah, I have my Twitch on the screen as well, Twitter on the screen. Follow me over at those places. It's Lintymon on Twitch. I stream most Sundays and Wednesdays, and have a lot of fun. Probably going to be using this team over there as well. So if you like what you see, if you like those, position heavy battles, the chess-like thinking in Pokemon, I think you're going to have fun at the next stream that I put on this week. So yeah, that's going to be all I have from me. Thank you again so much for watching through the whole video, and I'll see you next time.